Heavy T, it's just sorry about the abrupt ending on the last one in part two. This is part three, Prisonix, and I'm going to go ahead and start where I left off and just go from there. So give me just a second here. And there's another chapter coming right after it. So the Christians began praying as soon as some atheists joined them in prayer. Others just wished to be left alone to look at old pictures of family in the few light openings that were slightly illuminated through cracks in the cement or gapping in the manhole covers. Chapter 6, The Fall of the Three Eyes. So this is the next chapter. It was an event called the Fall of the Three Eyes that would save us from our black descended tombs. Orchestrated by the well-known hacking movement Anonymous, it would prove pivotal in our survival and escaping our underground existence of hell, buying us a 3-month window to our moving to above ground again. We were also able to gain the necessary knowledge and understanding into the technology being used to hunt us down and kill us. You see, the USA was sectioned into 4 grid partisans. 4 global satellites ran the entire USA, 3 ran Russia, 5 ran China, and so on. Every country in the world was now under its global matrix beast system by 2018. These satellites controlled information paths of the brain mapping programs of the awakened individuals, as well as controlling behavior by intercepting emotional frequencies of humanobots or the non-awakened individuals. The satellites were also weaponized, we'd find out later. However, the satellites were the central brains of the Prisonix matrix that controlled the AIC's reconnaissance on the ground while also controlling the drone surveillance activities in the air. In other words, they controlled every signal of data of the artificial intelligence clones, the predator drones, the terrain surveillance operations, DARPA, and any other technology the beast of Prisonix was using to eliminate our existence in this realm. It was February 6, 2019 when it all happened. Anonymous somehow was able to hack into one of the 4 satellites, credited to one of their newest members who orchestrated and executed the entire event. He must have been a government defector of the CIA or Defense Department, asked the man who dared. No, man, not even close. He was a 16-year-old black kid from the streets of Chicago. His father was one of the 4 founding leaders of the Black Panther Party, third in command, answering directly to the founder, Huey P. Newton himself. The United States government would later implement an illegal intelligence program called COINTELPRO to destroy the Black Panther movement. His father was later set up, then charged using false testimonies through DEA agents who were coerced by our government to bring down the movement and its affiliated members. He was sentenced to 22-year sentence for drug trafficking, and he never once sold not even a joint in his entire life. Planting drugs in his home, then raiding it using the paid-off false testimony of the DEA agents involved to charge and convict him. The worst part is his dad would never see the day of freedom, murdered in prison 6 years later by an unknown inmate while he slept. An inmate that just happened to have a key to the cell and a key to his own cell as well. Never ever solved murder of his father would haunt Isaiah for years to come. His father's death became the fire in his existence here, changing his path, directing his abilities into white hat cyberism, through his life, while altering any belief in justice that our United States government was sworn to uphold. Isaiah soon became Homeland Security's worst nightmare. He would help WikiLeaks in exposing the corrupt injustices that plagued our liberty while torching our constitutional rights in the process. Yes, you said they only hacked into 1 satellite, but 3 would fall. What happened to the other 2? The man who dared ask confusingly. Okay, so this kid, he's brilliant. He was able to find a self-destructive program hidden in the binary code. I guess in case of it being compromised by the designer, it was added in as a precautionary measure. Isaiah was not only able to hack into its self-destructive programming code, but he was also able to control its orbital polarity, giving access to decrease and increase its orbital rotation, moving it in between 2 other of the satellites before executing its self-destructive sequence, bringing down 2 others simultaneously in the process, leaving 1 left that controlled the East Coast side of the United States. Man, it was an awesome event, and well, it couldn't have come at a better time. We were saying prayers of farewell those last 2 nights leading up to it, and most of us were planning one last go of offense to the above ground, fighting to our last dying breath. Okay, then what happened? Eagerly to the man who dared ask. Well, the news was streamed live through YouTube using the Toro browser network, which was almost completely infiltrated by the beast now. though there were still some tunnels not completely regulated because they were switched 5 times a day in order to confuse the system and keep hidden the locational perimeters. When the word of it broke to those of us hiding underground, we cheered, we cried, and some prayed, thanking the Lord for our prayers being answered. When they said our goodbyes to those who had died that we buried underground by an old mining shaft that still had earth to dig from, and we headed up above ground to celebrate. Just as most of us began to reach the above ground, there were huge fireballs coming down through the dark, smoke-filled sky. 2 of them were just entering the falling route home to their now bewildered builders. The atmosphere eating them, incinerating them, taking down what we thought to be impossible. Smaller fragments began breaking from the fire spectacle displayed in the darkness that night, turning into smaller fireballs entering the hungry atmosphere, creating a spectacle of hope above us, serrated in a beautiful fiery display not one of us would ever forget. Cheering faces covered black with streaks of white coming down their cheeks from the tears all of us felt together that evening. The night would replace the 4th of July and would now be called the Fall of the Three Eyes, liberating all of us from our death below while giving us hope once again. The 4th of July was no longer celebrated? Asked the man who dared. No, it was halted a year prior. The fallen angels and Illuminati had been pretty successful in dividing the humanobots or gridsters against the Alliance. In fact, after the Fall of the Three Eyes event that night, they shut down the internet and any other technology used in the grid in order to program the humanobots through trauma-based mind control, the same type of mind control that was used on every American citizen after 9/11. Though this time, instead of making them hateful towards nations of Islam in order to occupy their black precious resources, this time the deception aimed at the humanobots, still unaware, would be to turn them against Anonymous and the targeted individuals in the Alliance. The puppets in the media would report to those unaware that Anonymous was a terrorist organization involved in shooting down 2 United passenger airlines. The Illuminati would then have 2 planes shot down over the Atlantic in order to solidify the reports provided to the humanobot public. They would also blame them further for the inconvenience of shutting down the devices and internet on the grid due to the event that night, in addition stating there was threats by the terrorist group of a cyber attack as well. Anonymous had never spilled 1 drop of blood through means of bringing the political corruption into the spotlight. Anonymous was a movement that was trying to wake the public to the deception and injustices of our government officials. Although the mind-controlled grid would use every attempt Anonymous made in bringing forward truth, also helping the people being targeted as an opportunity to twist these events to their favor, effectively building more anger, resentment, and distrust to our causes, while creating further divides between us. It would also bring plenty of negative energy vibrations through the grid for the fallen angels to feed off. The Illuminati families and fallen angels use the reactions to instill agendas while bringing hate to those they felt threatened by throughout our history, as you well know. Yes, they have always played games with the people through divisions and creating events to produce strife among certain groups they did not appeal to, the man who dared softly replies. Anyway, on July 4th, 2018, the elite, with help from the fallen angels, orchestrated a terror attack in the black communities of Chicago. They wanted a reason to end Independence Day while driving a wedge between the resistance and the black communities. Choosing the city of Chicago, many believed it to be retribution for the fall of the Three Eyes where Elijah grew up. It was successful in canceling the holiday for years to come. However, the fabricated event ended up backfiring in their faces, causing thousands more to awaken inside the grid. Most of them angry black men and women, a group the Illuminati feared hostility from because of their strong community roots. Yes, they always feared the black communities. They stick together in the community when injustices are brought, and they also have very high spiritual energy when they do, making them very difficult to control and divide. I remember the Duke and my father discussing it one time when I was younger, exclaimed the man who dared. Yeah, anyway, the puppet-controlled news media tried to report the attack as being orchestrated by the Alliance through the new terrorist group Anonymous, hoping to create further divisions between the African-American community and those in the Alliance. Fortunately, a minister and a barbershop owner were both tapped on the shoulder by a beautiful young lady who pointed them in the direction of seeing 4 officers in street clothes planting explosive material into one of the Anonymous vans with the group's logo on the side. The van would be used in a massive explosion next to a fireworks show that killed 17 African Americans and 3 Caucasians. The strangest part of the story is the young woman who pointed out the officers seemed to vanish instantly when the 2 gentlemen turned back around. Also must have had a twin because she tapped them both on the shoulder at the same time from the opposite sides of the street. After the bombing took place in Chicago, word spread quickly that some of the police in the area orchestrated it. However, the Gridsters were completely unaware that most of the police by this time had been cloned by the Illuminati in order to control them by the puppeteer fallen angels. Something that needs to be brought to light is that human rights have always been abused by my family. They would find a way to end any successful movements forward in creating equal rights in this country. Every time a black influential leader would finally begin to lead America in the direction of equal rights, they were always assassinated by black intelligence operations through the Illuminati family's blessing. In fact, they would have huge parties after these events that concluded that evening with a black magic ceremony. I know this because my brother and I would sneak out sometimes to watch. The women would take their clothes off, though it would soon become very creepy, and we'd run and hide in our beds under our covers. It wasn't done by word of the families to execute these events. Lucifer himself was the true puppet master behind the curtain when it pertained to these assassinations. The Illuminati families were completely wrapped up under very strong demonic forces, as you know. After creating these divisions and keeping the groups hating one another after the orchestrated discourse, the fallen angels would feed off the negative energy produced from the hatred, misery, and sorrow and depression. It is a cycle that must finally end, and that is why I decided to come here. It is a responsibility we all share that must be concluded for all of us. I couldn't agree more. You're a very brave individual to do this. Anyway, so after the bombing took place in Chicago and the word got out that some of the police in the area helped create the falsely accused explosion, the major cities went into full martial law with a 9 p.m. curfew. Many of the non-cloned officers even took off their uniforms to help the protesters. The National Guard was brought in to help through the United Nations. Most of the United Nations National Guard troops, though, were from other countries. In case things got too heated, the New World Order puppets wanted to make sure that they could fire on the crowds without hesitation. They were brought in to defend the government buildings mostly. These protests would last 2 weeks, causing more than $2 billion of damages. Many others of the black communities and others who finally saw through the lies and the deception were awakened as a result. The 4th of July was then taken down as a major holiday for good. That's part 3. So I'm gonna put that out there, and then I'm gonna keep going here. As soon as I have the rest of it up on my screen, I'm gonna do part 3, part 4, part 5, 6, 7, all the way up until it's done. So anyway, I appreciate your guys' support. Please let me know how it's going, if you guys like it or not, and you guys have yourselves a great night. And appreciate you guys. Hang in there, please. Just hang in there, guys. We're all trying to hang in there. So best wishes with you, and God bless all you guys.